Hello, this is Munelin Music. Today, I would like to introduce a novel I wrote called Möbius. Ever since I was young, I loved the moon. It wasn't just a casual liking. I was obsessed with it. There was a mountain where I would go to see the moon rise on the full moon night. I would wait for the sunset to see the crescent moon and stay up until dawn to catch a glimpse of the waning moon. Eventually, even on cloudy or rainy days, I roughly knew whether the moon had risen or not, and if it had, approximately where it would be and what shape it would take. Because I spoke about the moon so frequently, I received a lot of messages from friends on days when the moon was beautiful. I saw the moon and I thought of you. This is what you are talking about. The moon is really beautiful. I even changed my name to Munelin, which sounds similar to be possessed by the moon in Korean. In 2009, when I was completely crazy about the moon, I came across a strange book. It was called Who Built the Moon by Christopher Knight and Ellen Butler. The title itself is remarkable, isn't it? There are many conspiracy theories about the moon, but this book can be considered one of the most absurd. Has anyone ever witnessed a total solar eclipse? Among my biggest wishes in life, the one I cherish the most is actually seeing a total solar eclipse. That's why I've been eagerly waiting for the total solar eclipse that will occur the United States on April 8th, 2024, for several years now. The reason a total solar eclipse can occur is that the moon is about 400 times smaller than the sun and orbits the Earth at a distance of about 400 times closer than the Earth's orbit around the sun. However, unless the orbits aligned perfectly, no matter how close in size and far apart they are, a total solar eclipse will not happen, right? Surprisingly, the moon mimics the sun's movements by reversing its seasons. The moon on the summer solstice imitates the sun's movement on the winter solstice. And the moon on the winter solstice imitates the sun's movement on the summer solstice. Of course, from the perspective of the Earth. By mimicking the sun's movement and occasionally aligning perfectly, a total solar eclipse occurs. But wait, is that even possible? The sun is the center of the solar system, and the moon is nothing but a Earth's satellite. The previous remnant or wreckage of dead stars, known as molecular clouds, coalesced one day, giving birth to the sun. Then, as gas clouds gathered in different places, planets, including the Earth, began taking shape. Only after that did the moon also begin taking shape. It's quite strange that the moon periodically completely obscures the sun, creating the magic of a total solar eclipse. The Theia impact hypothesis. Who built the moon presents numbers that are officially documented in various encyclopedias based on observations as evidence. However, when considering these findings collectively, it is difficult to erase the thought that it seems as if an intelligent being, using a meticulously planned decimal system, designed and perfectly calculated the moon's numbers. Nevertheless, scientists want to present a more plausible theory of the moon's origin to the public. Therefore, they suggest the Theia impact hypothesis as the most viable hypothesis. In simple terms, the hypothesis states that a hypothetical planet the size of Mars, named Theia, collided with the primitive Earth. As a result, a portion of the Earth was torn apart, forming the moon. Interestingly, the composition of the moon is identical to that of the Earth's mantle, without any components indicating origin from another celestial body. The collision might have been so massive that Theia and Earth may have instantly merged into each other. With such a significant impact, how could it be possible that the Earth didn't acquire its tremendous rotational momentum as a side effect? How is it possible that the Earth miraculously gave birth to only the moon and maintains its current stable state? Numbers. We divide 1 year into 365 days, known as a solar year. However, if we divide equal length of time based on sidereal days, 1 year would consist of 366 days. This is because the Earth's secondary motion affects its revolution around the sun. A solar day is measured from noon to noon, using the sun as a reference point, while a sidereal day measures the time it takes for a star return back to its original position in the night sky as viewed from Earth. The difference between them is approximately 236 seconds per day. In 1 year, precisely 1 day is added, meaning that the Earth rotates 366 times in a year. The circumference of the Earth is approximately 40,000 kilometers, while the circumference of the moon is approximately 10,920.8 kilometers. Therefore, the circumference of the Earth is 366% of the moon's circumference. Accordingly, the moon's circumference is about 27.3% of the Earth's circumference, and the moon's orbital period around the Earth is approximately 27.3 days. The metric system was created based on the circumference of the Earth, and the time system was based on the Earth's rotational speed. So, wouldn't it be natural for them to have different units and numbers? However, they surpass their units and maintain the same number? Let's examine this further. The average orbital speed of the Earth is 29,783 kilometers per hour, which is approximately c over 10,000 meters per sec. Here, c is the speed of light. Furthermore, it is said that it takes 10,000 days for the moon to complete 366 rotations around the Earth. The diameter of the Sun is approximately 109.2 times bigger than the Earth's. And when the Earth is farthest from the Sun, about 109.2 solar diameters fit within it. Interestingly, the circumference of the moon is 109.2 multiplied by 100 kilometers. Multiplying the circumference of the moon by the circumference of the Earth yields 436,832,000 kilometers. The circumference of the Sun is 4,366,813 kilometers. Dividing the product of the circumferences of the moon and the Earth by the circumference of the Sun results in 100.0345. The value reduces by a factor of almost exactly 100. The moon completes one revolution in 27.322 days. Since the equatorial circumference of the moon is 10,920.8 kilometers, it rotates approximately 400 kilometers per day. The Earth rotates once every day. This means that a point on the Earth's equator moves approximately 40,000 kilometers. This is essentially 100 times the value. The rock on the moon are composed the same isotopes as the Earth, leaving no room for the theory that they originated from a distant place. It is clear that they originated from the same elements in the same space during the same period as the Earth. The density of the Earth is 5.515 grams per cubic centimeter, while the density of the moon is 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter. If they were celestial bodies formed at the same distance from the Sun, the difference in density is significant. The circumference of the moon is 27.3% of the Earth, but its mass is only about 1.2%. Authors of Who Built the Moon say that the moon was created using the relatively lighter mantle of the Earth after heavy mineral substances sank to the Earth's core and formed its nucleus. These excerpts are all taken from Who Built the Moon, and the rotational and orbital periods of celestial bodies are all accepted values. The circumferences of celestial bodies were calculated separately using the equatorial diameter found by researching encyclopedias. But there were no significant differences, so the original text was followed. Coincidences. It seems apparent that the moon is made from the Earth's mantle. However, if the moon hadn't been formed from the Earth, what would the Earth look like now? It would probably have a flat terrain without significant curvature. The entire surface would be covered by the sea, resulting in a water world with no land, except for possibly a few high elevations forming islands by chance. There would also be no crust convection. It would have been difficult to have such a diverse ecosystem under those circumstances. Of course, it is possible that the detachment of the moon from the Earth was also a coincidence. The tilt of the Earth's axis is 23.5 degrees. It is also the angle of inclination of the Earth's revolution plane, known as the ecliptic. Have you ever thought about how ideal this angle is? Let's imagine what it would be like if the Earth's tilt were 0 degrees or 90 degrees. If it were 0 degrees, the equator would always be scorching hot. The North and South poles would never see the sun and would be perpetually dark and freezing. The mid-latitudes would suffer from hurricanes occurring between the scorching equator and the frozen polar regions. But the scenario at 90 degrees would be even worse. If the North Pole faced the sun continuously, the North Pole and the entire northern hemisphere would be engulfed in flames. The South Hemisphere, from the equator to the South Pole, would never have seen the sun, resembling an icy hell. The hurricanes in the mid-latitudes would become even more powerful. This tilt of 23.5 degrees might be the golden angle that only exists thanks to the moon. It may also be a coincidence that the Earth maintains this golden angle. The rotational speed and orbital speed of the moon are exactly the same. This is why we only see one side of the moon. In a way, we were born on a planet where the satellite shows only one face. So, it might seem natural to us. However, the rotational speed and orbital speed of celestial bodies are both randomly determined. It is possible that their randomly determined rotational and orbital speeds happened to be the same. And this is not related to who built the moon. The average distance between the Earth and the moon is 384,400 kilometers. However, when you look at the diameters of the major planets in the solar system, Mercury is 4,879 kilometers. Venus is 12,104 kilometers. Mars is 6,771 kilometers. Jupiter is 139,822 kilometers. Saturn is 116,464 kilometers. Uranus is 50,724 kilometers. Neptune is 49,244 kilometers. And Pluto is 2,300 kilometers. If you arrange all of them between the Earth and the Moon, they almost perfectly fit with a total diameter of 382,308 kilometers. We are simply born in this solar system, so we can consider this to be natural. But could all of this be just a coincidence? The two authors of this book do not dismiss the arising thoughts, nor do they try to forget out of fear. They confront them head on. If someone, an intelligent being, created and placed the moon near Earth, what could be the reason? And even if they could have created it secretly, why would they write letters to people? Why are there so many hidden messages in distance, size, orbit, period, and ratio? They are precisely aligned with the decimal system used by humans. The two authors come to this conclusion. If there were no moon, the possibility of life emerging on Earth, which is already close to impossible, would become even more impossible. The fact that life emerged on Earth and has been able to sustain a stable environment for a long time, continuously giving birth, dying, and evolving, is all thanks to the moon. Based on the characteristics of the moon, it can only be an artificially designed and manufactured celestial body, created using the understanding of the Earth, the Sun, and the decimal system. The greatest beneficiary of the moon's creation is the advanced life form on Earth, humans, who have 10 fingers and are the only users of the decimal system. Therefore, humans must have created the moon. I felt like I had turned into a stone. It was as if the stone had been struck by lightning, and the surface had melted into molten rock due to the intense heat of the lightning. And as the wind cooled it down, I felt a chilling cold that kept giving me goosebumps. Just then, I saw an incredibly large full moon rising, and I couldn't sleep well for several days. However, as I followed all the numbers and logic presented in the book, I came to understand that there is no other conclusion that can be drawn except for this strange and frightening one. My heart started racing. I immediately became a fervent fan of this book and began writing a story about the future scientists who read this book. Chapter 1 describes how the human world has changed in the 22nd century, which serves as the background. The main characters who were born and raised in that world have curiosity about the moon, because the moon still doesn't have a logical theory of its origin. Major worldview. Number 1. It depicts a human world that has successfully recovered after a great war caused by climate change and environmental pollution. In a world about 100 years from now, there exists an enormous energy called mass dissolution energy. This is a technology that converts the mass of particles into energy without generating radioactivity. This technology is introduced to bring about the appearance of light-speed manned spaceships in the novel. And in reality, such a technology should not exist because it would create energy close to infinity as long as there is mass. Number 2. I did not want to depict a future human world that still had a sexual discrimination towards women, even 100 years later. If women exclusively still wear clothes that are only intended to look pretty, only women have long hair and do makeup, how ridiculous would it look? It would be like someone living in the Baroque era writing a novel imagining the future of 2024, where all the characters in the novel have hairstyles like the Eiffel Tower. That's why female characters in the novel mostly have shorter hair than men and do not have their lives consumed by dieting, makeup, and appearance management. Instead, those things are more prevalent among male characters who cannot reproduce on their own. Describing the process of abolishing sexual discrimination towards women is a bit long in Möbius. But humans are conceived in the bodies of women and are born with bodies composed entirely of nutrients received from women. Despite that, humans, an immoral species, perpetuate sexual discrimination throughout history and cultures. That's why I wanted to specifically address this issue. The history of sexual discrimination is intertwined with the agricultural revolution, and it's about 10,000 years old. So, it is a particularly difficult task to imagine a world where women do not face any discrimination because they are women. It made me put an effort to provide detailed descriptions as much as possible. Number 3. In the world of the novel, there is a significant discovery. It is the discovery that particles under light with a speed of c over pi, c being the speed of light, show both position and momentum. The wavelength of photons that we can see is much larger than that of particles like atoms or electrons. So we shoot light with a very short wavelength in order to accurately determine the position of particles. Then, the energy of the light is huge, causing a significant change in the particle's momentum. Okay, if we shoot light with a long wavelength to determine the particle's momentum this time, then we can no longer see the position of the particle. This is known as the uncertainty principle. However, if particles can show both position and momentum simultaneously, they would become particles beyond the state of the uncertainty principle. In the world of the novel, they call it the particles of the certainty principle and apply it to various scientific technologies. However, the reason why such a thing can happen is still unknown. After reading Who Built the Moon, I couldn't help but have many questions. Just as the two authors mentioned, if future humans went back in time and readied a place for themselves to live, what is life? If time travel from the present to the past is possible, what is time? And what is space, which is intertwined with time? How are they connected? Furthermore, what is the universe that gave birth to all of this? How was she born? How does she exist? How will she end? What does she look like? And why does she have such a form, etc.? I didn't want to write a novel about the universe without knowing her. I didn't want to tell lies about showing love of the universe without feeling it. So, I dared to confront those questions. I believe the moon was a subject, but it was nothing but a fuse. The main characters of Möbius, who were curious about the moon, jump into these questions after reading Who Built the Moon, just like me. So I imagined and wrote about the theoretical physics of the 22nd century in Chapter 2 of Möbius. You may say, current theoretical physics is weird enough and no fun at all. Is it an experiment to see how narrow your book's readership can become? However, more people than we imagine are curious about the universe. More people than we imagine are missing the universe because we were born here. Remember how many people read Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time? It was probably one of the hardest books to read. Here, we can see how much people want to know about the universe. In the next installment, I will introduce the discoveries of future theoretical physics that appear in Möbius Chapter 2. Thank you for watching.